The day started like any other quiet Wednesday in our suburban cul-de-sac of Whispering Pines Hollow. I was halfway through my morning coffee when 5 sleek black SUVs silently glided to a halt across the street. Moments later, agents wearing jackets marked Federal Investigation Division poured into Evelyn Brighton's house. Crates of paperwork were wheeled out while Evelyn, barefoot in polka-dot pajama pants and her self-declared HOA Supreme Chairwoman sash, stood shouting that this was all a giant mistake involving optional neighborhood goodwill donations. But let me rewind a bit. My name is Marcus Hale. My wife Natalie and I moved into 14 Meadowlight Trail 3 months ago, thrilled to have found a charming Victorian home with room for our twin boys and Labrador. What sealed the deal was that, due to a boundary discrepancy dating back to 1974, our home sat just outside the jurisdiction of the Whispering Pines Hollow HOA. We thought we'd gotten lucky. Evelyn thought otherwise. She rang our bell the very next morning after we moved in, armed with a tablet, files, and a plastic smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. Wearing a tailored blazer embroidered with Chairwoman Evelyn in purple cursive, despite the scorching heat, she told me we'd benefit greatly from paying the voluntary HOA dues of $105 per month. I politely declined, pointing out that we weren't legally part of the HOA. Her pleasant expression twitched into something steely. She muttered that everyone contributed to the collective serenity, and that universal cohesion breeds value. I nodded, thanked her, and closed the door. That's where my problems began. At first, it was minor. A different HOA pamphlet appeared on our windshield each morning, first about pool access, then benefits of unity, and later more ominous titles like compliance as contribution and the perils of individualism. Then came typed notes warning us about visual disturbances, like children's toys in the yard and non-regulated landscaping. One morning, I spotted Evelyn crouching at our curb, measuring the angle of our trash bins. Another day I caught her with a ruler, documenting the gaps between our flower beds. When I confronted her, she said, completely seriously, that floral alignment symmetry was essential to local curb appeal. She even had a binder labeled Aesthetic Order Manual, filled with diagrams and rules she clearly made up. At first, Natalie laughed it off, waving at Evelyn through the window like she was watching a neighborhood sitcom. But when Evelyn began snapping photos of our kids playing outside and uploading them to the community Facebook group under captions like, "Unattended minors lowering standards," Natalie's amusement turned into rage. Things escalated. Evelyn created charts linking non-HOA homes to imaginary crime spikes and falling property values. One post claimed houses within 300 feet of non-contributors declined 40% in resale value each year. I tried diplomacy. I invited her over, served coffee, and kindly asked her to stop surveilling us. She smiled politely, complimented Natalie's apple pie, and left. 2 days later, a city inspector showed up at our door with a clipboard. Someone had reported our backyard fence for code violations. Measurements were taken. It passed. The inspector, a weary man named Officer Lang, sighed and confided that this was the 4th anonymous complaint they'd received about our property. All from the same person. He suggested we begin documenting everything. Natalie, thankfully, wasn't just a stay-at-home mom. She worked part-time as a financial compliance auditor and had just the right skills for this mess. While I gathered photos and logged Evelyn's escalating antics, Natalie dug into the HOA's finances. What she found was bizarre. The HOA pulled in $105 per home from 139 households. That's over $14,000 monthly. Yet, the only signs of spending were a few seasonal banners and a lackluster community fair featuring half a dozen lukewarm hot dogs. Natalie submitted formal requests for budget disclosures. Evelyn ignored them. Instead, Evelyn hosted bi-weekly town talks on her lawn, blasting loudspeakers aimed directly at our house. The themes were always about dangerous independence, threatening harmony. So Natalie dug deeper. Turns out, Whispering Pines HOA wasn't registered with the state as a nonprofit. There were no elections, no board minutes, no financial disclosures. But there were luxury purchases. Using public records and her investigative know-how, Natalie unearthed Evelyn's spending spree: a new sauna, repeated trips to Costa Rica, and an $11,000 wine subscription labeled social hospitality expenses. Even more bizarre was the HOA expense labeled Urban Tranquility Restoration, a $32,000 custom koi pond built inside Evelyn's garage. Natalie compiled her findings. Every shady transaction was matched to fake meeting notes Evelyn had submitted to the city. Most of these meetings never occurred. Our neighbors confirmed it. Some of the people supposedly present had moved away years ago. We reported everything. IRS, state regulator. And just for good measure, Natalie sent a copy to the Federal Financial Crimes Division. Evelyn, unaware she was now on a watch list, cranked up her warpath. She filed noise complaints about our lawn mower. Animal control showed up after reports of an unregistered emotional support dog, our 10-year-old lab. A food safety officer knocked one evening about improper grill storage. All reports were dismissed. Officer Lang told us the department was building a file. Evelyn was close to being charged with abuse of public services. Then came the tipping point. She mailed a glossy wall letterhead notice announcing that dues were now $165 monthly, retroactive, and any non-payment would result in legal action and wage garnishment. It was pure fiction, topped with a fake state certification number and veiled threats. The notice landed in the mailbox of one particular neighbor, Victor Renz, a retired federal investigator. He'd had enough. After comparing notes with Natalie, Victor called in favors. They found fake board members, some listed as long-term volunteers, had never existed. One was named Melody Featherbrook, which turned out to be the name of Evelyn's first cat. Evelyn had forged votes declaring herself president for life with a $70,000 salary. The feds confirmed everything. Evelyn had diverted nearly $500,000 over 6 years. Her HOA was nothing more than a front for personal luxury. There were secret accounts linked to Brighton Civic Solutions, a shell company with no staff and only one bank account, Evelyn's. 3 months after we moved in, justice arrived. Agents cleared her home top to bottom. They found records, fraudulent tax returns, even a private notebook where Evelyn mused about expanding her community network empire. There were detailed plans for applying the same scam to 2 adjacent neighborhoods. As Evelyn was hauled off in cuffs, still wearing her sash, she pointed at me and shrieked, "This is your fault. You ruined everything." She wailed about how no one appreciated her sacrifices and how the neighborhood would collapse without her leadership. The trial exposed even more: false financial filings, wire fraud, tax evasion, mail fraud, and misuse of public reporting systems. She had even spent $28,000 on handmade porcelain angels labeled community art enrichment. Evelyn claimed she deserved compensation for her leadership. When pressed on her yacht purchase, titled Civic Harmony, she claimed it was for community boat parades, despite Whispering Pines being landlocked. The jury didn't buy it. She was sentenced to 5 years in federal prison and ordered to repay over $480,000 in restitution. As the judge handed down the sentence, Evelyn began wailing, sobbing that her vision for unity had been stolen and that we'd all suffer without her. The bailiffs practically had to drag her out of the courtroom.